going on, everybody? Gus here. So, you guys know that one of my absolute favorite IEMs ever is this guy, the ThieAudio Legacy 3. Even with this like weird Clockworks design that it's not exactly for everybody, and I don't find it the most beautiful thing ever, but it is unique looking. But the sound and the shape and the way these things handle basically every frequency and the tuning, the comfort, these are awesome, especially with the little foam tips. And today we're taking a look at their younger brother, smaller brother, younger brother, because they're about the same size. These are the ThieAudio Legacy 2. And perhaps, and because of my latest video that I put up on the KS1 versus the KS2, kind of the same comparison, bigger brother versus younger brother, I kind of really didn't have any expectations for today's video to be any different. But then you open up the box and you get greeted with this. I mean, the presentation on the Legacy 3 was fancy looking and nice, but the visual on these IEMs is gorgeous. The construction is absolutely amazing. And it is definitely something ThieAudio is banking on, because on their website, even the Legacy 3 now has basically the same design as the Legacy 2, including a different connector to the actual cable. And this product layout in the box, I know that IEMs that are a little bit more fancy tend to come isolated in their boxes with the cables stashed away, but this presentation just looks so good. It makes me want to see the rest of the entire package, almost especially the cable as well, because it already looks great as it is. And unboxing these things, you take out the packet with the usual useless literature, and it reveals this beautiful blue leather looking case, which is just as good as the previous one that the Legacy 3 came with, but it's smaller, which means it's more pocketable. And I don't know about you guys, but for me at least, when talking about IEMs, pocketability is a pretty important deal. And this being smaller and this pretty, I mean, thumbs up for that. This is definitely scoring points for the Legacy 2. And then you pull the actual IEMs out, and the design had already punched you in the face being gorgeous, but the construction, there are no seams anywhere that you can see or feel with your hands, with your fingers. Everything is just so premium looking and premium feeling. And it's basically the same shape as the L3, so at least from that sense, I already feel great omens for the fit and comfort of these things. And the cable is an awesome 4-thread weave that doesn't kink, with a small 3.5mm plug, metal splitter. It's light, it's wavy, and it basically looks awesome. Plus 2 sets of silicone tips that do feel and sound slightly different to each other to help you with, tuning the overall sound profile of the Legacy 2s to your liking, and a pairing of a beryllium dynamic driver and a balanced armature one. And all of that, the entire package, for 99 bucks. Well played, ThieAudio. At least so far, very well played. But at that $100 price, the L2 is 17-ish% cheaper than the L3, which means that inevitably, absolutely everything is going to be, balanced out and compared in those terms. How much does that 17% difference in price actually impacts the overall quality delivered? Because that is basically 17% less cash to pay for the design, which is around 40% more beautiful, to the point where they kind of stolen the design of the L2 to upgrade the L3. The cable is still awesome, but at least in my opinion, the cable of the L3 is at least 20% better. The L2 is around 10% lighter, and despite me not being able to actually measure it with equipment or feel it or see any difference in the hand, it does have something different about the shape, just enough so that it fits a little bit better. Overall comfort with the L2 is greater than with the L3. And it seems like the L2 is around 10% less efficient in comparison. And since both of them have the same overall sensitivity, that does tell me it's something about the impedance of these IEMs, but don't worry, because it's not great enough of a difference to make this anything like actually hard to drive. Both of them are still pretty easy to push with basically anything, which leaves us with just one last point to discuss: sound quality. All right, what does that 17% price drop does into the sound quality? What does it change? Well, kind of everything. In a nutshell, the L3 is an accurate and transparent IEM with impeccable imaging and instrument separation. It has a spacious presentation, lots of detail, speed, precision. It has a pretty great deal of impact to the low end while being balanced and having a pretty, inviting sound signature. And it also has that tweakable aspect to it with the switches that you can, toggle on and off. And the Legacy 2 basically keeps almost all of that, almost everything, but just tuned down a notch or two. The biggest differences, by far, at least in my opinion, are the fact that there are no switches to be found on the Legacy 2, so the sound signature that you get is going to be probably only affected by the source and amp and DAC that you're using, which is not going to fluctuate that much, and the tips that you choose to use, either one of the two silicone sets or a foam tip, as I have tried with mine. And the second thing is that the L3 has a much bigger footprint in the treble region. It has a lot more sparkle to it. It's not sibilant, but it is brighter. It's a lot more resolving, and it pushes the envelope in terms of detail retrieval far beyond what the L2 actually brings to the table. Which, depending on what you want from your IEMs, can mean that you instantly see why the L3 is the more expensive one, because it does stuff that the L2 can't. But if you are someone that is way too sensitive to the treble region, or you just want something that's a little bit more recessed in that region so that you can enjoy a different approach, or stuff where like too much treble, too much resolution in that area can get a little bit fatiguing, then the L2 is potentially going to be less aggressive, meaning it can also be much more appealing to a broader spectrum of people, because there's a bunch of you guys out there that don't really, get along with treble all that well. They are still balanced. That weaker presence in the treble does roll off a little bit fast, but it can deliver a good amount of impact to the low end with great separation and vocal presence in the mids. It still has excellent detail retrieval overall, and despite the soundstage not being small, it is less expansive than the L3, as well as it doesn't really have all that much detail across the board, at least in this head-to-head comparison between them. But from a bird's eye view, once you put them both side by side or compare them directly to one another, what you get is basically the same tuning that you would find on the L3 also present in the L2, with a different level of presence and footprint on the low end, the mid-range, and the treble regions, probably because of their choice of drivers, since the L2 uses that duo of a beryllium driver with a balanced armature that does a fantastic job keeping everything tight and fast and punchy and snappy, but that it is still not in the same rank as that nano membrane driver from the Legacy 3. Look, the Legacy 2 is a flawlessly constructed and absolutely fantastically presented IEM. It does an incredible job at basically everything that you throw at it. You can't really fault it with ease. At $99, it is incredibly hard to find reasons not to recommend it. And I mean that, it's really hard. And I say like that because it isn't about a head-to-head comparison between these two IEMs. It's about this overall area of the market, from $80 to $130. That's getting crowded, and with a lot of incredible options in there, to the point where I don't think we will, or can at least easily, find something that will be like absolutely, definitely punching so much above its asking price that is going to defeat every one of its competitors with ease anymore. 1 or 2 years ago, something like this at $100 would be such an incredible unicorn. It would be so isolated from everything else in the market that it would just blow up. It would implode the market in itself. But nowadays, you have plenty of options around there. But since everything, or at least most things, from $80 to $130 sound this good, or can sound this good, and are awesome and very well constructed and have good packages and have great cables and all of that, and sound as good as $200, $300, $400 pairs of IEMs, maybe those $200, $300, $400 IEMs are the ones that we should be looking at differently. Because if we're being honest, and maybe it's not even about honesty, it's just facts, the price to quality ratio that those like $300, $400 IEMs used to claim has been brought down to around 100. As usual, it's all about what sound signature appeals to you. What's your poison? And then go for it, because you have plenty of options that are definitely going to be like spot on for you in one way or another. Everything has its caveats, everything has its flaws, and everything has its strengths. It's just a matter of you balancing them all out. But not to sound like a cop-out, is the Legacy 3 better than the Legacy 2? Yes, absolutely. To my ears, I would definitely pay the 20 bucks extra to get the L3 on top of the L2, especially now that you can get this look on this IEM. I mean, win-win, right? But I do have to admit that the Legacy 2 is more of an all-rounder, meaning that it can be also a safer bet for something to be used as either a monitor or something to enjoy music or just kicking back and relaxing or blasting to whatever your jam is. And when I say safer, I mean that for ThieAudio as a company. Because if you can have a product, an IEM that sounds like this, but also has characteristics that make it appeal to more people, especially at a lower price, that's basically good business. But it is even better when the product in question looks like this beautiful little blue gem of goodness. But that's about it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.